Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of Oh and That's a Bad Miss. It's a brand new snooker podcast looking to bring the best snooker discussion and results and news straight to your phone. So hit that subscribe button. You can find us on the Apple Podcast Store, YouTube, SoundCloud, and possibly Spotify in the not so distant future. What I'm looking to do with this podcast is to find a community, find a group of people where we can just chat about snooker in a friendly way, because let's be real, this is an old man's game. This is a game that you go into a seedy snooker hall and play with a pint, and it's always a bit seedy, but it's great and we love it. But that does mean that the online presence of it is quite low compared to most other sports. So what I'm hoping to do with this is to find the people who have got nowhere to chat about snooker and bring them together. And a great place to talk about snooker online is reddit.com/r/snooker. A collection of discussions, videos, results, news, everything you could think of. And they're our sponsors for this first episode. If you're interested in finding somewhere online to talk about snooker, you can't go wrong with reddit.com/r/snooker. So, today's Sunday as I'm recording this, and that means tomorrow we have the UK Championships. It doesn't feel like a year since O'Sullivan won it, and it's very nice to have one of the big three back. It feels like a while since the World Championships, but we are well and truly into the new season. And I'm interested to see how this goes, because the way O'Sullivan's been playing in a lot of these tournaments, you could think he could run away with it. And his first round opponent may not be much of a challenge, because it's factory worker Andrew Simmons, who builds carbon fibre car parts part-time, and has only just managed to get the day off work. So, yeah. Not your traditional sportsman, not your traditional professional. You would have thought going on to BBC, because this is a BBC covered event, you'd have someone who didn't work part-time in a factory. And although it's quite a fun little story, it got some coverage from BBC and other media outlets. I think it says a lot about the state of the game that a man who is a professional snooker player, who is one of the top 100 and something players in the world at a sport that has such a rich history, and the amount of money being pumped into this game at the top level, one of the top couple of hundred players can't make a living off it. He has to go to feed his family, has to go to work every day doing something else, which takes away from his practice time, which means he can't win as many events, which means he'll be stuck in this cycle of not quite being the snooker player he could be and not ever making a living from it. And although obviously it's going to be an incredible day for him to walk out in York and take on Ronnie O'Sullivan, most people's pick for the best player of all time, it's just not right in my eyes that Barry Hearn pumps so much money through sponsors, and especially in China, to the top players, but not to the lower levels. And that they're getting old, the top players. Not all of them. You got the younger ones like Judd Trump, Kyron Wilson, Yan Bingtao, all of them. But the big names, O'Sullivan, Williams, Higgins, they're getting on. They're not going to be around forever. You need to build the next generation of star. I don't know. What do you guys think? As with all these discussion points, if you want to send me a message, you can find me on Twitter. Haven't created the account yet, but I'm just gonna have to guess and say that the Twitter handle will be @O and that's a bad miss. If not, the link will be in the description. So I probably should have created that before making this. You can find me on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, just leave a comment. And yeah, you can always send me an email. All of the contact information will be in the description boxes of your chosen platform. And if you do just want to send a question and you want to see my opinion on something, or just some feedback on the show to make it more enjoyable, send me a message there too. Another thing about the UK Championship, which could be massive, is it's the first tournament in a long time that Mark Selby may not walk out world number one. Mathematically, he could lose his world number one position. And that's the first time in years that he's been in that position. Because the 2016-17 season was so successful for Mark Selby that he's on track to lose a lot of points over the next few months. If Selby loses in the first round, which, I mean, he's had a few of these major tournaments where he's left early. I think, if I remember correctly, he left in the first or second round of the UK Championships last year. So if he's gone again in the first round, and Mark Williams goes on to win it, which Mark's already won a ranking event this season. Mark's playing incredibly well. Mark is a defending world champion. It could happen. It's not out of the realms of possibility that Mark Williams walks out as world number one after the UK Championships. And Mark Selby has been world number one since the 2015 German Masters. That's a hell of a legacy. That's nearly 4 years of being the best of your sport. And I don't know, last season felt so off for Mark Selby, just off. For the majority of the season, he played below his standard. I mean, he won, I think it was three ranking events last season. But the last event before the World Championships, we saw what he could do, and he won the China Open. Is it the China Open? Something like that. The Chinese tournament, 2 weeks before the World Championships, he won. And that was a huge pot. That was a huge amount of money that everyone thought, oh God, he's going to... Big money Mark Selby. He only really performed under the big lights. And then he had an average run at the World Championships. I don't know. I can very easily see Mark losing his world number one position this season. And I love the guy. I know a lot of people were somewhat, aggressive towards his play style because he does play quite defensively and he'll torture you. He's no longer the jester from Leicester. And when he stopped being the jester from Leicester was when he started winning matches and winning the big tournaments. So it works for him, and it's clearly worked for him. He's one of the best players of all time. But is he still the world number one? And as of last season, no. I think by the end of the season, he could be third or fourth. I think O'Sullivan and Williams will quite likely be ahead of him in the rankings. But you can never count out Mark Selby. He could turn it round, and you never know. And that's sport. That's any sport, but I find particularly in snooker, they have this way of making most snooker players have this way of making you think, oh, he's down and out. He's gonna knacker it, and then all of a sudden win a few matches and you world number one by £150,000 again. I'll be interested to hear what you guys think about that, and send me a message. In other news, we have the Snooker 19 game coming out next year, which I know for me and a lot of people is incredibly exciting news. We haven't had a snooker game in years, and we haven't had a good snooker game in even more years. I recently moved flat, which is why it's so echoey in here. I do apologise. But I was living at home before this, and I had to obviously do the classic clear up, take what I needed, and I took World Snooker 2003 on the PlayStation 2 because it's a game I played for years. I was 5 years old when that came out, and I remember playing it non-stop. I loved that game. There's something about snooker games where you just lose yourself. But Snooker 19 is going to be available in it's on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, which is good. I used to be quite a big PC gamer, so it's nice to see the game being released then. It'll have a career mode, a single play mode. Obviously, it doesn't appear they've been dodging the question of online multiplayer, which leads me to believe it won't be a thing. I don't think there'll be online multiplayer, which sucks. It'd be really nice to be able to go play, but if you're a snooker fan, and if you're a fan of video games, I urge you to go out and buy this. I've had no contact. They made a post on the subreddit I run, the developers, but I've had no direct contact with them. But I urge you to buy it, because at the end of the day, video games are a business. The more that sell, the more likely we are to get a sequel. And in a sequel, if the first one sells well, it'll get a bigger budget. With a bigger budget, they can run servers for multiplayer. They can have more arenas, because this one's got, I believe, the Crucible, it's got Ali Pali, and I think maybe the York Hall. I believe it has all of them in the game. The models look quite good, and I'm very excited to play it when it comes out next year. They haven't got a solid release date, so probably later next year. But I do urge you guys to go out and purchase it, because the more you support it, the more likely we are to get something back. And you see that in a lot of businesses where people always, for example, if you were to look at that game and say, oh, it doesn't have multiplayer, I don't want to buy it. Well, you're not supporting you don't have an obligation, obviously, to support anything you don't want. But it always feels like if you were to have supported it, you would have got what you wanted eventually. And you would have, we may get multiplayer in a sequel, and the games would continue to improve. But if you don't buy it and this one doesn't sell well, then the companies won't make a sequel. It's a difficult one. It's up to you. Obviously, I'm going to buy it, but we'll see. I've got not high hopes. I hope it does well. Back to real snooker instead of video games. We have the 3 ITV4 tournaments, the Grand Prix, Players' Championships and Tour Championship, which have previously been sponsored by Ladbrokes, are now being sponsored by Coral, which are part of the same company, but I think they've just used it to advertise Coral more. I think the company appears to be pushing Coral as their main source instead of Ladbrokes recently, just going by their TV advertisements. So it will now be the Coral Grand Prix, the Coral Players Championships and the Coral Tour Championships, offering the prize money of £100,000, £125,000 and £150,000 respectively, which is, that's I wouldn't turn it down. Trust me, I really wouldn't turn that down. If you were to win all 3, which it's like the Home Nation events. When Barry Hearn came out and said if you win all 4 Home Nation events you get £1 million, everyone knew no one would, because the look at the ranking winners from this season. No one wins more than 2 in a row, and if you win 2 in a row, fuck me, you're doing well. And if you were to win all 3 of the Coral tournaments, you'd earn an extra £125,000, and they'd round your winnings up to £500,000, which again is good, but it's not as much as Barry Hearn's offering for the Home Nation events. And if you win all 3, you get the Coral Cup, which is, that's nice. It's nice to have a trophy, an extra trophy. If you've already won 3 trophies, I don't think you've got much room left in your house to pop another one, but okay. I love those ITV events, though. The coverage can be a bit budget. It often feels like ITV only picked up snooker in order to make a cheap sport programming, which is, I mean, that's what ITV4 is. It's cheap sport programming, but it feels a bit budget. But you have Stephen Hendry, Alan McManus, Clive Everton, and all these incredible commentators, and Phil Yates, which you don't. I mean, the BBC have switched up their commentary team a bit recently. Some have hit, some have missed, but I always love the ITV events, including the shootout. The shootout is a controversial one, and I know a lot of people don't like it because it's not really snooker, is it? I don't think it should be a ranking event in any way. I think it should be just an event that happens. I've got no issue with it happening, but a ranking event, I mean, it's like getting a rugby league player to play rugby league all season, but around halfway through the season, he has to play some rugby union. Like, it's not a totally different sport, obviously, but it doesn't play like snooker. I don't understand how they can think, okay, here's the top 50 players in snooker. Let's make them play a heavily modified version of snooker, but you're still counting towards your overall snooker score. Like, I don't get it. I think Barry Hearn loves the idea of a dedicated event for the more sort of dart style fans, but I don't know. I think a lot of you agree with me that it shouldn't be a ranking event, and that it doesn't work as a ranking event. Michael Giorgio won it last season. I think that shows it. Like, he made it to the Players' Championship and the Champion of Champions because of that, and lost in the first round. Like, it's a different skill to be able to play quickly under pressure with a 10-second time limit. It infuriates me sometimes, the way Barry Hearn makes decisions, but hey-o, not much we can do. Snooker's definitely in a better position than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. It obviously hasn't hit its peak with Steve Davis and Dennis Taylor, 1985, but it never will, and I think worldwide it's doing so much better than back then. In England, less so. I mean, I'm a southerner. I'm in Dorset, so obviously not exactly a hotbed for snooker. It's a more northern fan. It's like that Mitchell and Webb sketch, which is where the name of the podcast comes from, if you're unaware. Where they're saying viewers in the north of the country may be experiencing sound difficulties. Yes. What about our southern viewers? We don't have any southern viewers, and that's what it feels like. I was talking to every time I say I'm into snooker, or I watch the snooker, or I play snooker. They don't know. Some people my age, I'm 20, don't know what snooker is, and that blows my mind. That a sport that's as English as anything. There's people who just don't know what it is, and they don't want to know. They go down the pub, play a couple of games of pool, and trust me, I love that. But they have no idea, other than Ronnie O'Sullivan. And I've had, weirdly enough, I've had multiple people turn to me and call him Ronnie McSullivan. Ronnie McSullivan! And they don't know it's English. Funnily enough, obviously, I'm making a podcast. I'm a bit of a nerd. I meet a lot of people from around the world online. Not about snooker, just through friends of friends and video games and that sort of stuff. And the only two people I've met who actively enjoyed snooker online, one was Greek and the other was Danish. Like, it's brilliant how worldwide this sport has become. But it's not dying in this country, but if you look at the turnout in some of the matches at the what tournament was it? Champion of Champions. The early rounds of that, the turnout was horrific. Like, it wasn't in a big arena. It was in Coventry. It wasn't, and that should be quite a hotbed for snooker up in Coventry. It's not. It wasn't in a ridiculously large place, but they couldn't sell it out. It looked pretty damn terrible. When you're offering that kind of money, but you can't sell it out. Who knows? I'd like to hear what you guys think about that. And if you're looking for somewhere to talk about snooker, as I said earlier, this episode was brought to you by reddit.com/r/snooker. A good place to just chat about live events, past events, future events, anything that you fancy about snooker. It's a very positive place. We try and keep it positive, which is nice, because I know obviously we're English, we like a moan, but it is nice to have somewhere positive to talk about what we love, because that's at the end of the day, why would you moan about something that you love so much? Either way, thank you guys for listening to this first episode of the podcast. I think we'll probably try and keep it between 20 and 30 minutes each time, just because I don't want to listen to myself talk for an hour, so I assume you guys don't want to either. But if there is enough listener requests, then maybe we could up the time, answer some questions, and just see where we go from here. So I appreciate you guys giving it a listen. Any feedback is greatly appreciated, and I will see you guys probably halfway through the UK Championships. I'll do a summary to see where we are, and just see where we are in the UK Championships, because I feel like we could be in for a few surprises. I think we could have a smaller name winning, but we'll see. I've been Charlie, and I'll see you guys later.